Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Moser and I'm a software engineer over here at Itemus. Today I'm going to be showing you the new feature to Secure version 24.3, which is trust zones and trust boundaries. These are included as part of our item definition, and this feature will allow you to evaluate different levels of trust within your item definition on a per component and per data flow basis. So without further ado, let's get right into the tool. When starting a project in version 24.3 of Secure, you'll find a new element present within our method configuration. This element is the trust model. So we can go find that by going to our ISO 21434 solution, and then method configuration, and then finally trust model. Now what you're seeing here is the default representation of this trust model. This is fully customizable and XAMPP compatible, so you can reuse this model in all of your Taras if you so choose. What we see here is just a rule set. We actually need to implement this in our model itself, and that's what we're going to do now. To implement this trust model into our Tara itself, we need to navigate over to our item definition. So we'll go to our Tara solution, navigate to item definition, and we'll see this new trust zone element here. This is the trust zone chunk, and it's where all of your trust zone logic is going to be stored within your Tara. Now, we can manually enter our trust zones if we need, and we can decide the hierarchy of this essentially however we would like to. So for instance, I'll just label this as internet, and then if I would like to add a child trust zone to this will then have a target of public cloud. So there is a child relationship between the public cloud and the internet that's present here. Now, we don't have to manually enter in all of our information. In fact, if we're happy with what's in the trust model and we simply want to copy and paste what was here into our model itself, all that we need to do is have this field empty, and then we're going to pull up a helpful little hint. So by holding left alt and pressing enter, we get this intention menu. From here, we're going to select populate trust zone chunk from available trust levels, and it will automatically populate this chunk with the entities as they were presented within our trust model. Now we just need to go ahead and apply this to elements that are found within our item definition. For the sake of time, I've already created a basic item definition for us to apply these trust zones to. Let's take a look at what we have. So within our system diagram, we can see that the item definition is currently comprised of two components and a data flow that connects the two. Here we have a cloud server and we have a vehicle. Let's apply our trust zones that we just created to these two components. In order to do so, we're going to select the component we're interested in applying the trust zone to. Then within our inspector, we're going to scroll up until we see the section for trust zones. If you want to keep this smaller and simply scroll down as I'm doing here, that's something that you can do. It's purely personal preference. Now we can decide what trust zone this particular component belongs to. I'm going to label this as public cloud because this is a cloud server, and let's say, for instance, this is an infotainment system. This is a fairly basic example. It's mostly just to show you the general functionality of how this works. Now our vehicle itself, we can apply a different trust zone to. So I'll go down here, I'll open this, and this is a privately secured trust zone. We now have these modeled within our system, and we can go to a new assistant in order to analyze the effects that crossing this boundary has. So in order to do that, we'll go to Security Analysis, Assistant, and then the Interaction Assistant. If you don't see it in your project, either because you're starting a new one, you're starting one that was not in 24.3 when you first created the project, or if you otherwise just are not able to find it, you'll right-click the folder, go to New Routes, Assistants, Security Analysis Assistants, and then finally Interaction Assistant here. Let's go ahead and open this up. We'll select Refresh, and now we'll see all of our information that we have from our model regarding trust boundaries and the crossing of information. Here we can see that we're moving from a low area of trust to a high area of trust, and we need to consider different threat classes for our data flow, our source component, as well as our target component. When we decide to accept a threat class per element of our item definition, that'll create a threat scenario for when that is targeted by an attacker. And rejecting it is a very similar interface to what we have with previous assistants, where we give a spot to provide your rationale in the inspector field here. It's important to note that there is no visual representation of these trust boundaries within our system diagram currently. For instance, when we go back here, you might notice that we're not able to see any sort of indication of where the trust zones are. That is stored within the inspector element itself. Now, there is still a way to easily identify the different areas of trust within a model and where that's passed through, and that's generally through the assistant. So what we can do to demonstrate this, I'll just create a couple new components. I'll add a data flow between these two, and I can go back to my interaction assistant. To make it easier to navigate this page, as this can become quite full if you have a large amount of item definition elements and trust zone boundaries, and especially boundary crossings, I would go to this area here and minimize all the elements within a trust boundary. This will create it so that it will show me all the trust boundaries just as they are with their basic information, such as this is a low area of trust to a high area of trust. This one, I did not fill anything out, but it'll give me a very brief list of all the different interactions, what is the source component, target component, and the data flow that's involved. So that covers everything related to the new trust zones and trust boundaries in version 24.3 of Secure. If you have any questions or need assistance with the Secure tool in any way, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you. Have a nice day.